Bukkyo, the Buddhist Sutras, by Eihei Dogen, from Shobogenzo, the treasury of the true Dharma I. The method of teaching bodhisattvas and the method of teaching Buddhas exist in the here and now. They are both tools of the great truth. The tools accord with the master, and the master uses the tools. For this reason, at the very moment of sometimes following a good counselor, and sometimes following the sutras, which the Buddhist patriarchs of India and China have done without exception, establishment of the will, training, and experience of the effect have no gap between each other at all. Establishing the will relies on the sutras and on a good counselor. Training also relies on the sutras and on a good counselor, and experiencing the effect also is wholly intimate with the sutras and with a good counselor. The moment before and a word after are both in the same state as the sutras and as a good counselor. The moment itself and the inside of a word are both in the same state as the sutras and as a good counselor. Good counselors in every case are thoroughly versed in the sutras. They are thoroughly versed means that they see the sutras as their national land and see the sutras as the body-mind. They have seen the sutras as the means of establishing the teaching for others. They have seen the sutras as their sitting, lying down, and walking. They have seen the sutras as father and mother, and they have seen the sutras as children and grandchildren. Because they have made the sutras into practice and understanding, good counselors have mastered the sutras. A good counselor, washing the face and drinking tea, is the eternal sutra itself. The saying that the sutras produce good counselors describes 60 strokes of Ubaku's staff being able to produce children and grandchildren, and 3 strikes on a stone mortar on Mount Obai making possible the transmission of the robe and transmission of the Dharma. It describes not only that, realizing the truth on seeing the peach blossoms, realizing the truth on hearing the sound of a bamboo, and realizing the truth on seeing a bright star. These are all examples of the sutras producing good counselors. There are skin bags and fists who get eyes, then get the sutras, and there are wooden dippers and lacquered tubs who get the sutras, then get eyes. What has been called the sutras is the whole universe in the 10 directions itself. There is no time or place that is not the sutras. They use the characters of consummate philosophy, and they use the characters of secular philosophy. They use the characters of the heavens above and they use the characters of the human world. They use the characters of the world of animals, and they use the characters of the world of asuras. They use the characters of the 100 weeds, and they use the characters of 10,000 trees. Therefore, the long, the short, the square, the round, the blue, the yellow, the red, and the white, which are arranged in dense profusion throughout the universe in 10 directions, are all the characters of the sutras, and they are the concrete surface of the sutras. We see them as the tools of the great truth, as the Buddhist sutras. This sutra is able to spread out over the whole of time, and to spread throughout entire nations. It opens the gate of teaching people, and does not forsake any human household over the whole earth. It opens the gate of teaching things, and saves material beings throughout the earth. In teaching Buddhas and teaching Bodhisattvas, it becomes the whole earth and the whole universe. It opens the gate of expedient methods. It opens the gate of abiding in place, and not forsaking one person or a half of one. It reveals true form. To get this sutra at this very moment, with the thinking, sensing, mindfulness and realization, and in the state without thinking, sensing, mindfulness and realization, of Buddhas or of Bodhisattvas, though it is beyond the intentional doing of the individual, is the great aim of each person. The time of decisively getting the sutra is beyond past and present, because past and present are moments of getting the sutra. What is manifested before our eyes as the whole universe in 10 directions is just the getting of this sutra. When we read, recite, and become versed in this sutra, the Buddha wisdom, natural wisdom, and untutored wisdom are realized prior to the mind, and are realized prior to the body. At this time, we do not have the doubt that wisdom may be a new and special state. When this sutra is being received, retained, read, and recited by us, the sutra is enfolding us. The situation before a line and around a word, and in scanning down and dwelling on a sentence, is instantly the scattering of blossoms and the making of garlands. We call this sutra the Dharma itself, and in it there are 84,000 accumulations of Dharma preaching. In this sutra, there are characters which are Buddhas who have realized the balanced and right state of truth. There are characters which are Buddhas who are presently living in the world. And there are characters which are Buddhas who have entered parinirvana. The arriving of reality and the leaving of reality are each a character in the sutra and are a line of Dharma written on the Dharma. Picking up a flower and winking an eye, and a face breaking into a smile, are just the eternal sutra authentically transmitted from the 7 Buddhas. Standing waist deep in snow and cutting off an arm, doing prostrations and getting the marrow, are just the eternal sutra transmitted from master to disciple. The subsequent transmission of the Dharma and giving of the robe are just the arrival of the moment in which all volumes of the universal scripture are entrusted. 3 strikes of the mortar and 3 sifts of the rice in the winnowing basket make the sutra hold out a hand to the sutra, and the sutra thus rightly succeeds the sutra. Furthermore, this is something coming like this, is 1,000 sutras for teaching Buddhas, and is 10,000 sutras for teaching bodhisattvas. To explain a thing does not hit the target nicely preaches the 80,000 compilations and the 12 parts of the sutras. Furthermore, a fist and a heel, a staff and a whisk, are eternal sutras and new sutras, sutras of existence and sutras of emptiness. Being part of the assembly and pursuing the truth, making the effort of sitting in Zazen, are originally the Buddhist sutras that are right at the beginning, and the Buddhist sutras that are right at the end. They are sutras written on the leaves of the Bodhi tree, and sutras written on the faces of space. In sum, a Buddhist patriarch's 1 instance of movement and 2 instances of stillness, and his or her holding on and letting go, are naturally the closing and opening of the Buddhist sutras. Because we learn in practice that there being no ultimate extreme is the ultimate standard, we receive sutras and expel sutras through the nostrils, and we receive sutras and expel sutras through the tips of the toes, as sutras were received and sutras were expelled before the birth of our parents, and as sutras were received and sutras were expelled before the time of the King of majestic voice. We receive sutras and preach sutras through mountains, rivers, and the earth, and we receive sutras and preach sutras through the sun, moon, and stars. Sometimes we retain sutras and transmit sutras with the self that precedes the kalpa of emptiness. And sometimes we retain sutras and transmit sutras with the body-mind that precedes face and eyes. We cause sutras like this to appear by breaking atoms, and we cause them to appear by breaking the Dharma world. The 27th Patriarch, The Venerable Prajnatara says, "My out-breath does not follow circumstances. The in-breath does not belong in the world of aggregates." I am constantly reciting sutras like this. 100,000 myriad kotis of scrolls, never only one scroll or two scrolls. Hearing these words of the ancestral master, we should learn in practice that sutras are recited in exhalation and inhalation. If we know this reciting of sutras, we will know the place where sutras exist, because it is the reciter and the recited, reciting sutras and sutras reciting. It may be total knowing and total seeing. My late master constantly said, "In my order, we do not rely on burning incense, doing prostrations, reciting names of Buddhas, practicing confession, or reading sutras. Just sit, direct your energy into pursuing the truth, and get free of body and mind." Few people clearly understand an expression like this. Why? Because to call reading sutras is to debase it, and not to call it reading sutras is to be perverse. You are not allowed to talk, and not allowed to be mute. Say something at once. Say something at once. We should learn this truth in practice. Because this principle of reading sutras exists, a man of old has said, "To read sutras, we must be equipped with the eyes of reading sutras." Remember, if there had been no sutras from ancient times till today, there could be no expression like this. We should learn in practice that there is reading sutras which is getting free, and there is reading sutras which is non-reliance. This being so, each practitioner or half a practitioner who receives and retains the Buddhist sutras will inevitably become the Buddha's disciple. Do not learn at random the wrong views of non-Buddhists, because the right Dharma-eye treasury, which is being realized in the present, is itself the Buddhist sutras. All things that exist as Buddhist sutras are the right Dharma-eye treasury. It is beyond unity and difference, and beyond self and others. Remember, the right Dharma-eye treasury is limitlessly abundant, but you will not clarify it entirely. Even so, you are exhibiting the right Dharma-eye treasury, and you do not disbelieve it. The same should be true for the Buddhist sutras. They are limitlessly abundant, but you should hope to believe in and to practice a single verse or a single saying. You will not be able to understand 80,000. As one who is not a complete authority on the Buddhist sutras, never rashly say that the Buddhist sutras are not the Buddha Dharma. although those others can be heard boasting that they are the bones and marrow of the Buddhist patriarch. When we look at them with right eyes, they are just late learners who still rely on sentences. Some may be equal to those who have received and retained a single saying or a single verse, and there may be others who are inferior to those who have received and retained a single saying or a single verse. Never insult the Buddha's right Dharma on the basis of such sparse understanding. Nothing could have more virtue than the Buddhist sutras, which are sound and form itself. Sounds and forms delude and disturb those others who in any case still crave them. The Buddhist sutras do not delude and disturb those others. They should never insult the Buddhist sutras in their disbelief. Nevertheless, for the last 200 years or so, in the great kingdom of Sung, certain unreliable, stinking skin bags have said, we must not keep in mind even the sayings of ancestral masters. Still less should we ever read or rely upon the teaching of the sutras. We should only make our bodies and minds like withered trees and dead ash, or like broken wooden dippers and bottomless tubs. People like this have vainly become a species of non-Buddhist or celestial demon. They seek to rely on what cannot be relied on, and as a result they have idly turned the Dharma of the Buddhist patriarchs into a mad and perverse teaching. It is pitiful and regrettable. Even broken wooden dippers and bottomless tubs are the Buddhist patriarch's eternal sutra itself. Few Buddhist patriarchs have completely enumerated and classified the scrolls of this sutra. Those who say that the Buddhist sutras are not the Buddha Dharma do not research the occasions on which the Buddhist patriarchs have relied upon the sutras. They do not study and practice the occasions on which Buddhist patriarchs manifest themselves following the sutras. And they do not know how deep the intimacy is between Buddhist patriarchs and the Buddhist sutras. Unreliable people like this are as common as rice, flax, bamboo, and reeds. They ascend the lion's seat and establish monasteries throughout the country as the teachers of human beings and gods. Because the unreliable have learned from the unreliable, they know no truths other than the unreliable, and because they do not know the truth, they do not aspire to it, but they pass from darkness into darkness. It is pitiful. Because they have never had the body-mind of the Buddha Dharma, they do not know what the behavior of the body and working of the mind should be like. Because they do not clearly understand the principles of existence and emptiness, When someone asks them a question, they randomly raise a fist, but they do not know the meaning of raising it, because they do not clearly understand right and wrong ways. When someone asks them a question, they hold up a whisk, but they do not know the meaning of holding it up. Sometimes, hoping to offer a guiding hand to others, they quote Rinzai's 4 thoughts and 4 relations between reflection and action, Unmon's 3 phrases, Tozan's 3 paths and 5 relative positions, and so on, and see them as the standard for learning the truth. My late master Tendo was constantly laughing at this, saying, "How could the learning the state of Buddha be like that?" We cause the great truth authentically transmitted by the Buddhist patriarchs to cover the mind and to cover the body again and again. When learning this state in practice and aiming to master it, there is no time to spare. What free time could we have to fit in the sayings of later generations? Truly, we should know that old veterans in all directions have no will to the truth. It is evident that they do not learn in practice the body-mind of the Buddha Dharma. My late master's preaching was like this. Truly, Rinzai was a junior in Obaku's order. He received 60 strokes of the staff before he eventually visited Daigu and had the conversation about the mind of an old granny, under the influence of which he reflected on his past conduct and went back again to Obaku. Because rumour of this episode has resounded like thunder, people have thought that the Buddha Dharma of Obaku was transmitted to Rinzai alone. Moreover, people have thought that he was even more excellent than Obaku. This is not true at all. Rinzai had stayed a short while in Obaku's order and followed the other monks, but when Venerable Patriarch Chin had prompted him, they say that Rinzai did not know what to ask. Even before clarification of the great matter, how could one who is standing on the ground to listen to the Dharma, as a profound devotee of learning in practice, be dumbfounded like that? We should know that he is not of the highest makings. Further, Rinzai has never had more zeal than his master, and sayings of Rinzai that surpass those of his master have never been heard. Obaku has expressions that outshine his master. He has great wisdom, surpassing that of his master. He has expressed truth never before expressed by Buddhas, and he has understood Dharma never before understood by patriarchs. Obaku is an eternal Buddha who transcends past and present. He is even higher than Hyakujo, and he is even more of a genius than Baso. Rinzai does not possess such excellent of spirit, Why? Because Rinzai does not express any saying that has never been expressed before, even in a dream. He seems only to understand the many, forgetting the one, or to realize the one, forgetting the many. How could we see the four thoughts and so on as criteria for learning the Dharma, as if the taste of the truth were present in them? Unmon is a disciple of Seppo, though he has been able to operate as a great master to human beings and gods. It must be said that he is still at the learning stage. How could we esteem these as having attained the root? They may be nothing more than sorry offshoots. Before Rinzai had arrived, before Unmon had appeared, what did Buddhist patriarchs rely upon as standards for learning the truth? So remember, in the houses of Rinzai and Unmon, Buddhist conduct of the truth is not transmitted. Because people lack that which can be relied upon, they randomly expound such outlandish and confused theories. Such fellows recklessly ridicule the Buddhist sutras. Others must not follow the habit. If the sutras were to be discarded, Rinzai and Unmon might also need to be discarded. If we cannot rely upon the Buddhist sutras, we are without water to drink and without a dipper to scoop water. There again, the founding patriarchs, 3 paths, and 5 relative positions as kernels of the truth are beyond the area which the unreliable can know. He has received the authentic transmission of the fundamental principles and has directly indicated Buddhist conduct. His can never be the same as other lineages. Furthermore, unreliable people say that the teaching of the Tao, the teaching of Confucius, and the teaching of Shakyamuni may each amount to the same in their conclusion. They just have temporary differences in their gates of entry. Sometimes they compare it to the 3 legs of a tripod. This is a notion widely discussed by monks in the great kingdom of Sung today. When such people speak like this, the Buddha Dharma has for them already vanished from the face of the earth. Further, we should say that not so much as an atom of the Buddha Dharma has ever come to them. People like this, rashly attempting to express insight into the Buddha Dharma, mistakenly say that the Buddhist sutras are not useful, and that in the lineage of the ancestral master there is a fundamental teaching which is transmitted separately. They are small in nature because they have not glimpsed the boundaries of the Buddha's truth. They say that we should not rely on the Buddha's sutras. Then if they had sutras by the patriarch, would they rely on them, or would they not rely on them? There are many dharmas in the patriarch's truth, that are as described in the Buddhist sutras. Should they be relied upon or discarded? If the Patriarch's truth were said to be separate from the Buddha's truth, who could believe in the Patriarch's truth? The ancestral master is the ancestral master because he has received the authentic transmission of the Buddha's truth. If there were an ancestral master who had not received the authentic transmission of the Buddha's truth, who could call him the ancestral master? We revere the first patriarch because he is the 28th patriarch. If we spoke of a patriarch's truth separate from the Buddha's truth, it would be difficult for there to be 10 patriarchs or 20 patriarchs. That we revere the ancestral master because he has received the transmission from rightful successor to rightful successor is due to the importance of the Buddha's truth. With what features could an ancestral master who had not received the authentic transmission of the Buddha's truth meet face to face with human beings and gods? It would be more difficult still to turn around the profound will that adores the Buddha in order to follow anew an ancestral master who did not belong to the Buddha's truth. That the unreliable madmen of today idly scorn the Buddha's truth is because it is impossible for them to decide which dharmas belong to the Buddha's truth. To compare, even for a moment, those teachings of the Tao and of Confucius and the teaching of the Buddha is not only pitifully stupid, but it is also the cause and conditions of wrong action and is the downfall of nations, because it is the undermining of the three treasures. The truths of Confucius and Lao Tzu can never match the state of an arhat. How much less could they equal the state of balanced realization or the state of fine realization? In Confucianism and Taoism, they are able barely to discern in astronomical phenomena the vision and hearing of saints, but it is hard for them to clarify, in one life or in many lives, the cause and effect of the great saint. They are able barely to discern in non-doing the movement and stillness of the body-mind, but they can never clarify in the limitlessness of the moment the reality of the whole universe in the 10 directions. In short, the inferiority of the teachings of Confucius and Lao Tzu to the teaching of the Buddha does not deserve to be discussed in terms of the separation of heaven and earth. Randomly to discuss them as one is to insult the Buddha Dharma and to slander Confucius and Lao Tzu. Though there is some accuracy in the teachings of Confucius and Lao Tzu, How could the old veterans of recent times understand even a fraction of them, much less grasp them as a great handle upon 10,000 ages? In those teachings, too, there is instruction and training which the flotsam of today could not easily enact. There is no one who could even attempt to practice them. Not even a single atom can be identified with another atom. How much less could the late learners of today determine what the profound and mystical Buddhist sutras are? Not clearly understanding either of two factors, they just randomly express outlandish theories and confuse words about unity. In Great Sung China today, such people sign their names under masters' titles and occupy positions of temple master. Without shame, before the past and present, they stupidly make nonsense of the Buddha's truth. It is difficult to permit that the Buddha Dharma is present in them. Old veterans like these, down to the last person, say, Buddhist sutras are not the original intention of the Buddha's truth. The Patriarch's transmission is the original intention. In the Patriarch's transmission, the mysterious, the profound, and the fine have been transmitted. Words like these are stupid in the extreme. They are the talk of madmen. There is no mystery in the authentic transmission from the ancestral master that differs from the Buddhist sutras, or even from a single word or half a word therein. Both the Buddhist sutras and the Patriarch's truth have been authentically transmitted and have spread from Shakyamuni Buddha. The Patriarch's transmission has been received only by rightful successors from rightful successors. But how could rightful successors not know? How could they not clarify? And how could they not read and recite the Buddhist sutras? A past master says, "You delude yourself with the sutras. The sutras do not delude you." There are many stories about past masters reading sutras. I would like to say to the unreliable as follows: if, as you say, the Buddhist sutras should be discarded, then the Buddha's mind should be discarded, and the Buddha's body should be discarded. If the Buddha's body-mind should be discarded, the Buddha's disciple should be discarded. If the Buddha's disciple should be discarded, the Buddha's truth should be discarded. If the Buddha's truth should be discarded, how could the Patriarch's truth not be discarded? If you discard both the Buddha's truth and the Patriarch's truth, you might become one person with a shaved head among 100 secular people. Who could deny that you deserve to taste the stick. Not only would you be at the beck and call of kings and their retainers, you might also be answerable to Yama Raja. Recent old veterans, on barely obtaining a note from a king or a retainer, proclaim themselves to be masters of Buddhist temples, and on this basis they speak the insane words described previously. There is no one to tell right from wrong. Only my late master laughed at these people, whose wrongness was totally unrecognized by the old veterans of other temples. In general, we should not think that because monks are from a foreign land, they must inevitably possess clear understanding of the truth, or that because they teach the emperor of a great nation, they must inevitably have accomplished something. The living beings of foreign lands do not all have the makings of monks. The good ones are good, and the bad ones are bad. It may be that types of living beings are the same in the limitless triple worlds of the universe. Furthermore, those who possess the truth are not always chosen to become the teachers of the emperors of great nations. Emperors also have difficulty knowing who possesses the truth. They make appointments merely on the basis of the recommendations they hear from their retainers. In the past and present, there have been emperors' teachers who possess the truth, and many emperors' teachers who did not possess the truth. In a corrupt age, those appointed are people who do not possess the truth. In a corrupt age, those not appointed do possess the truth. What is the reason? It is because there are times in which a true person is known, and there are times in which a true person goes unknown. We should not forget the past example on Mount Obai of Jinshu. Jinshu was the teacher of emperors. He lectured on the Dharma before bamboo screens, and preached the Dharma before bamboo blinds. Moreover, he was the highest ranking of 700 noble monks. We should believe in the past example on Obai of temple servant Ro, by changing his occupation from woodcutter to temple servant. He had escaped from hauling firewood. Still, he made it his job to pound rice. That his position was low is regrettable, but his leaving of secular life and transcendence of the monkhood, his attainment of the Dharma and reception of the robe, are an example unheard of since ancient times, and absent even in India in the West. They are a rare and noble precedent, set only in the Eastern lands. It seems that even the 700 noble monks could not measure up to him, and that the dragons and elephants of the whole country could not follow in his traces. He is the Buddha's rightful successor, having properly taken his place in the succession as the 33rd patriarch. If the 5th patriarch was not a good counselor with the ability to know a person, how could it be so? Consider a truth such as this quietly. Do not be hasty about it. Hope to get the ability to know people. To fail to know a person is a calamity for self and others, and a calamity for the whole nation. Wide knowledge and skill in handling important matters are not necessary, but we should urgently seek the eyes to know a person and the ability to know a person. Without the ability to know a person, we will sink into depression for long ages. In conclusion, we should know that in the Buddha's truth there are inevitably Buddhist sutras. We should learn in practice, as the mountains and the oceans, their universal text and their profound meaning, and we should make them our standard for pursuing the truth. Preach to the assembly while lodging at Kippoji Temple in the Yoshida district of Eshu in the 9th lunar month in the autumn of the 1st year of Kangen.